It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, superheroes, and breadsticks, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
I thought you were going to say your name was Papa Royer because of the breadsticks, but it's not. It is Mike Royer. And this week, we've got the cast list for DC's Creature Commandos. Mm-hmm. HBO and Discovery announced their Max streaming service.
Oh man, I have like maybe an unexpected soapbox when we get to that section. I've been saving up all week.
I expect no soapboxes are unexpected from you, Mike. So this will be a pleasant surprise. The Marvel's first trailer released earlier this week, and we'll talk about it and more.
Yeah, if you couldn't tell, Chris and I were deep in a conversation about the different qualities of fast food breadsticks, if you were to say.
Yeah, pizza joints, and then how do you decide, and what's your favorites?
And I was going on and on and on. Speaking about soapboxes, right?
Okay.
Of just like, I can't stand people out there who like rail super hard against like fast food. Saying like, oh, McDonald's, it's so bad. I haven't, they brag about like, oh, it's been at least 10 years since I've touched a McDonald's like French fry, or like it's an achievement or something, and they just throw it in your face. I feel like it's the same type of vibe when people like, trash Papa John's. Like you can trash Papa John, the singular person who's no longer attached to the company, right? But Papa John's as a pizza, it's fine. It's like pizza to its simplest form is just like bread, sauce, and cheese, right?
Yep.
And I was telling Chris, it's so simple to make. They freeze it and they throw it in a big closet inside of your grocery store, right? So it's just like pizza absolutely can be elevated, but like also Papa John's can make a pie just fine.
It all depends on what you're feeling in the moment, right? Like is there like, again, we were talking about this. It was the idea of breadsticks, right? I don't care where I get my pizza from. They're all the same to me at the end of the day. Minus several differences, but I was like, we talked to my wife, and she's like, I want breadsticks, for whatever else, and breadsticks. I'm like, okay, let's get pizza. And she's like, no, not those breadsticks. I'm like,
those
okay.
are too specific breadsticks.
It's fine. It's a focaccia bread with a very specific blend of herbs, spices, and on top of it. Yes. That Mike mentions that we dip specifically into our sugary tomato paste.
Now, speaking of breadsticks, I'm sorry for the listeners out there if I'm making this a little bit too regional.
Okay.
But they are around the United States. A little fast food Italian restaurant by the name of Fazoli's. If you're not familiar with Fazoli's, it's how cheap can we sling Italian food? The lowest common denominator. They serve, if I remember right, or at least the last time I went there, your pasta is served on like a black plastic plate, right? Like you're almost like at like a cookout, right?
Someone just microwave your TV dinner for you with that lasagna in there.
But they come in clutch because they hand out free breadsticks like nothing. Like back in the day, there used to be like a part-timer whose job was just to like every 10 minutes walk around the restaurant and like hand out breadsticks. And they are just like, imagine an Olive Garden breadstick, right? Yep. You can pick up an Olive Garden breadstick and it still remains horizontal. It's still rigid. Fazoli's breadstick, no. It's been marinating in some equivalent of fat. I don't know if it's butter or oil, and they probably
the answer is yes.
Say one or the other, but it just flops and it's like slightly translucent at the bottom. It'll clog your arteries in a second, but man, I haven't had one of those in forever, and I would love one.
Yeah. We've got those. Someone on that I was playing with games with yesterday mentioned they should create a delivery service for noodles, and the punchline was, of course, call it Sin Nudes, like nudes in OODS. I'm like, they had that. It's called Grubhub for Fazoli's. So this is the second time Fazoli's got name dropped this weekend. I also said there's Noodles and Company. I don't know if you have those out there where you are, Mike.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the Noodles and Company.
Yeah, so I'm like, this is delivery from one of these guys. We don't have to reinvent a company for this. They already do it. We just got to sell them on the marketing idea. But it's funny that Fazoli's has been name dropped twice this weekend in my life.
So this makes sense, Chris. I'm looking at their store directory.
Okay.
They have 210 restaurants.
Who? Fazoli's?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm like,
And,
which store?
And surprise, surprise, the state of Indiana has the second most restaurants at 30.
Is Kentucky the first?
Kentucky's the first, yes.
Yeah,
33.
I live in Kentucky. I can tell you where I could probably throw a rock and hit a Fazoli's around some of these joints. There's one near my work office actually across the street. So
I would imagine their headquarters is probably in Kentucky.
yeah, well, they know people in the Midwest or whatever region you want to call this do not know what real authentic Italian pasta tastes like. So they were like, we fooled them. We got them good with our Fazoli's. They think they're eating good Italian food, but they are not. We have our box of penne pasta that we bought off the Walmart shelf, and our Prego salsa or sauce coming in here.
They're only in 26 states. I'm not seeing a single international location.
Yeah, they know better.
An Italian restaurant, so
it's like putting a Taco Bell in Mexico. You're like, no, that ain't gonna work.
I think they got them in Mexico.
They did.
They got them down there.
They did not work out with the original menu. They were like, this is not a taco. Like this is not authentic Mexican food.
More importantly, do you think there is a Papa John's, Fazoli's, or Taco Bell in a galaxy far, far away?
You've made me ponder this. I think if we look at the multiverse as a whole, Mike, yes, there's an opportunity here. But you're gonna jump into what I've been doing this week, and literally. Since I guess Star Wars Celebration last week, I've just been in a Star Wars state of mind, Mike, and that's not a bad thing. Like I've not touched any of the movies. I've been watching the Mando. I've got to finish season 2 of the Bad Batch. We lost track on that a little bit. Dropping 2 shows at once on a Wednesday is very difficult to keep up with. By the way,
yeah,
I'm glad they do the Marvel different, but.
Yeah, I mean, not to cut you off, but speaking of Mando, we haven't really been talking about it much this season, but the last episode is airing this week, so I would imagine next week on the podcast we'll be talking all about season 3 of Mandalorian.
Very right, and possibly even how it ties into the Dave Filoni movie coming up. I assume their announcement was tied in directly with this release, so hopefully we have some video for that. But I've been revisiting the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order game. Which is the Souls-like Star Wars game. I hated this game when I started playing it, Mike. I was like, I don't understand why it's so difficult. Then I realized it's all about the parry mechanic. I never played a Souls game, so to me it didn't click. And then it clicked one day, and I'm like, I love this game. And I went back and I started a new game to play this through because the second game, Jedi Survivor, drops at the end of the month. So I'm like, well, let's go ahead and get this through. And see what's going on. So I was able to wrap up a lot of that this week. And then also on the flip side, I bought myself, I've been reading on an iPad, but I bought myself a little e-reader to finish up the Star Wars High Republic Light of the Jedi novel. Because, Mike, we know the High Republic is new for the Disney stuff, right? It's been out about 3 years now, maybe 3.5 since it was announced. And this novel was really like the big kickoff. Like, hey, here is the High Republic, what it is, what it stands for. And Light of the Jedi is very interesting novelization. There's 3 of these novels now. I've got to find the second and third one, but this one, it's not really about, there's no there are several main characters, but it's not like again, watching a Star Wars movie, right? There's no Skywalker saga, like someone's destiny to be the forefront of this. It has a lot of different characters, including different Jedis, and the ability sets they use, like apparently Jedi back in the High Republic, they had different skill sets, but like they would like encourage them to, once they became a Jedi Master, to learn more about their unique ability. And one of the characters is her name is Avar Kriss, and she has the ability to, it's like I wouldn't say mind meld. She can reach out to all the Jedi in like a battle and like coordinate them better in like space battles and stuff like that, or things like that. And there's like a huge catastrophe early on in the book, and like she's like, I guess using the Force to communicate to everybody to get help.
This is a newer book, right?
Like, it's like 2020, 2021 maybe at the latest. Yeah.
It seems like maybe this is a direction that they're trying to slowly move, like Jedi Force powers of kind of giving people unique abilities. I just saw an interesting TikTok where people are trying to take the original script for The Rise of Skywalker. That's what the episode 9 is, right?
Yeah. Rise of Skywalker.
The script that never got made, right? The one before J.J.
Yeah,
Abrams
the
came
Colin
and took over.
Trevorrow's Rise of Skywalker.
Duel of the Fates, I think, was the title for it. So they've been almost kind of like doing like little fan animations of like parts of that script, or kind of like recaps of what the movie could have been, right? And there's a scene in that movie where Kylo learns a new Force power where he can like steal the Force from a person. I guess like bad guy spirit bomb type of thing. Like, I'm going to suck it from you and take it.
I believe that's a My Hero Academia move there, Mike.
Yes. And then we do get to see Grogu in Mandalorian early on, use a new Force power of healing people. Yeah. So this is interesting to see that, like, this could be like a new avenue that we take Force powers.
Yeah, and it's really I think it's great because, it was playing Fallen Order. The main character has it's not uncommon, it's not unique to him, but it's very rare. The ability to touch an item and view the Force echoes, like the history of an item, right, or people around items. And they use this as a point in the game to like go in, like, you're learning about the lore of the worlds and this battles and your storyline by touching items in the levels, right, or seeing these Force echoes. So that I think that's really unique, but like, everyone's always got the Force push, the Force pull, the slow down time, the repel, all that stuff, everyone's kind of got that, but some of these are really unique. And Light of the Jedi, it's really, I think it's not exactly what I was expecting, but that's not a bad thing, right? It's a good sci-fi novel set in the Star Wars universe, that happens to have some Jedi in it. And I think that's kind of that was really fun to read. I'm glad I did catch up on it, and I hope to find the second ones and follow it. But I've also started reading, simply because of the Ahsoka trailer, the original Thrawn trilogy books from the 91, like the 90s era, for the Star Wars Legacy, by Steve Zahn, who has rewritten the Thrawn trilogy for the new Disney-approved Star Wars era as well. But he's been used as a, what do you call it, a consultant on the live-action Thrawn for the show. And I assume that by extension the movie. So I'm very excited to dive into those again after 30 years. I haven't read those since I was a young kid who borrowed them from the library. So excited to kind of dive into some more Star Wars novels. There's hundreds of them, and I think that was fun part about the expanded universe before Disney bought it right. And it seems like maybe some of their lessons learned based on Celebration last week and some other things is like, hey, Legacy things were pretty good, and we should probably re-implement them because we messed up by just nuking them completely. So it seems like a lot of these are going to at least be ported over, not one for one, but pretty closely going forward. So I'm in the Star Wars state of mind. We have Star Wars news to come up, Mike, but you've been absorbing some video content rather than playing games or reading. So lay it on here.
Yeah, I found myself a little bit of free time this weekend, so I finally got around to watching the third season of Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix, which is an animated anthology series that kind of takes a slightly Black Mirror angle, also usually dark or humorous. There's always like a twist or something going on in all these shorts, right? And they're always pushing the envelope of what animation is or could look like, right? I think one of the shorts that probably went the most viral out of this season is the very last short of season 3 about kind of like these Spanish conquistadors, and there's some sort of like vixen or witch or something that like lives in the water. And then, like, the animation is, like, crazy because it's relatively photorealistic, which is cool, and they've done that in other seasons. But the camera work is nuts because they're using, like, the virtual camera in a way that, like, you normally just don't see in animation. Like, they lock off the camera and they anchor it to a character a lot of the times. It shakes violently, but like not in an organic way, like if like a steady cam operator's holding it or something like that. It's just so surreal to watch it. So it's cool to watch Love, Death, and Robots to kind of just see, these are maybe experiments of what we could see in the future. But my favorite short out of all of them, if I remember correctly, it's called like Night of the Living Many Dead, I think. And it's like a whole short that takes place like from God POV with like the tilt shift effect, how like you're looking at like miniatures, and it's how does a zombie apocalypse play out looking at it from a tilt shift point of view, and it's hilarious. It's only like 7 minutes long, And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's like re-uploaded it to like YouTube somewhere, so you don't necessarily have to have Netflix, I would think, to go watch it. It's just like hilarious seeing all of the events unfold, and like it all escalates. The zombies get into like a nuclear waste facility towards the end, and they mutate. It's just really, really fun. So yeah, I'd go check that out. Great time. They're all very not safe for work. Like none of children should not be watching this with you. They're very mature. We've brought it up on the show before, the first couple seasons, but it's from Tim Miller, who created the first Deadpool, right? Movie.
Yeah. He worked on the first one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because the director changed second time. Then didn't Tim Miller move on to? Was it something else? I don't remember what it is. He had a lot of juice on him basically after that first Deadpool movie, which is probably why he was able to kind of do what I would consider almost like a vanity project, right? Animated shorts don't necessarily bring down the box office.
So Tim Miller, if I remember correctly, he started his work though in visual effects. So that his background before Deadpool as a visual effects artist, and I think it was his team that worked on the short that leaked for Deadpool that everyone was like, that got it. So I think his background in effects is why he gets Love, Death, and Robots. But I just looked it up and just pulled up. He was a director on Terminator Dark Fate, was the only other movie he's done.
Ooh, rough.
He was the EP on Sonic and Sonic 2, but not a director. So, yeah, it's fine. It looks like he is actually doing reshoots, a director of reshoots on the upcoming Borderlands movie as well, because Eli Roth was doing another movie at the time. So,
gotcha. Well, it looks like I think there is a possibility for a fourth season, which is a big deal for Netflix, right? To get to a fourth season of anything is hard to do over on that streaming service. So go check out Love, Death, Robots season 3. Holds up for sure. And then to wrap things up, I finally checked out The Fabelmans, which is Steven Spielberg's latest film that's supposed to kind of be autobiographical in a way. He changed the names of everything, but it's supposed to be like literally his life that he's making, of how he became a filmmaker, what his childhood was like. If you're a fan of filmmaking, I feel like it would be very interesting to watch this movie to kind of see. It's almost I feel like it's very cathartic for him, almost like he was going through therapy, making this movie, because a lot of things that happen in this movie seem so specific, like, this definitely happened to somebody, because if somebody was like writing a fictional movie, the events would take place a little differently. So that's just a way of saying the movie does feel a little awkward at times, and the tonal inconsistencies are kind of strange, but that's what real life is like at the end of the day. So you can see watching this movie how it could get nominated for an Oscar, but also how it definitely wouldn't win the Oscar, right? Which is what happened last run at the Oscars. So, yeah, I mean, if you got a chance to watch The Fabelmans, it's interesting to kind of see what his life was like, going from like kind of like kid to teen, if you will, and then stops right about there. But I don't think like kind of like your average moviegoer is going to get as much out of it. But it was fun. It's been a while since I've seen a Spielberg movie, and as soon as it was over, I was just like, I want to go watch E.T. But then I just opened up my phone and scrolled on TikTok for an hour. So
yeah, I mean, it's kind of given me, again, I think maybe it's due to Star Wars Celebration, but going back and revisiting the Indiana Jones films. Right, like I've seen The Last Crusade more than any other movie. I and probably Temple of Doom. I always mix up Raider and Temple of Doom mentally, so I need to go back and like mentally rearrange myself. I think this will be a good rewatch before the Indiana Jones movie comes out this summer. Anyway, so
soon. That movie's coming out soon, isn't it? June?
Yeah, it's like June. Yeah, so I think that might be a good way to get your Spielberg fix in as well, Mike. Before we go through that, so let's jump back into Star Wars. Star Wars Visions Volume 2. This was. I believe not announced maybe at the end of Star Wars Celebration. I think there might have been a panel Monday morning or late Sunday, one of the two. They've announced that the second volume of these shorts will come out May 4th of this year on Disney Plus, and the upcoming trailer kind of confirmed. We've talked about this before. I think the studios behind it, but this gives visuals to that, including what is very distinctively the Studio Aardman, which is the Wallace and Gromit team, and you get to see some of those like stop motion claymation videos in here. But what what stands out to me about this, Mike, other than the volume one, which I didn't finish, is volume one was very black and white, slow. Like it seemed very, samurai, like older, I guess, Japanese art films. Whereas this seems very modern CG, kinetic, lots of color going on in this, and maybe some. I wouldn't even say anime, but like very like there's some CG stuff in here of like a world with stormtroopers and aliens that look really cool. I think this one has me more sold on the idea of visions rather than the first one did.
The first season was like an interesting mix of like, at least we're going to heavily lean onto this anime style with a lot of at least the promotional marketing materials. And I think a large selection of those first shorts kind of had anime inspiration, which there's nothing wrong with that, right? But I think the thing that I like the least about season one is it didn't seem very consistent of what they really wanted the shorts to kind of do overall. Like some of it almost kind of seemed like maybe not alternate retellings, but it's like, let's make a short that's so like out of pocket that like you can't even really imagine it being in the Star Wars universe. It's almost like, let's just tell a story that happens to have like a lightsaber in it, right?
Yeah.
And then some of the other shorts just, I just don't think were very interesting overall, but that's the thing about animation anthologies. We were just talking about them a minute ago of like they make awesome trailers, right? Because you just have nothing but amazing, unique art styles that you can just like mash together. But yeah, I would agree with you. It seems to be this trailer has a more of a highlight of like, oh, these are things that are actually happening in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
We're just telling the stories with different animation styles.
Yeah, and like it's very much unique animation styles, and like I said, to me it's the color. I always know there's that black and white, the first episode in Visions, right? It's very black and white and solemn and samurai. This looks colorful and funny. Like the Aardman stuff has the kids and the little aliens. There seems to be one of them. What it looks like is it Kubo in the Six Strings?
Kubo's a good alt, I think, for that.
Yeah, one of them looks like that. There's some classic anime that looks more like akin to like the Gundams or maybe even Gindy's Clone Wars, his animation style in a couple of these. I to me, it just looks really kinetic and exciting and full of energy. And the other one seemed more solemn, more artsy, like you mentioned, just not really. These are stories that maybe we had and we added a Star Wars layer to the top of the regular story, and these seem grounded.
They should bring Gindy back for at least. I mean, I don't know if he's like, too big to do just one short, right? But like I've been watching a couple episodes like of Primal recently here and there, and like, ooh man, he's on another level, man.
Yeah, absolutely, and maybe they will. Maybe again, like I said, a lot of the legend stuff is coming back into play, and one of my favorite episodes of his Clone Wars was, I think it was completely dialogueless. It was Mace Windu versus the Stormtrooper or the robots.
That's like the standout all-star.
Yeah, where he has like the super over exaggerated force powers, right? Because it's a legend. I'm like, man, come back and do another Mace Windu story. I think that would be really fun to see him kind of like take that solo approach, even with no dialogue, and be very visual. I would like to see that. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. The other thing that was announced again this weekend had a trailer that was not released but leaked. Is The Bad Batch is coming back for its third, and they announced it is a final season for this show. One of the big reveals is they are bringing back Ian McDiarmid as Emperor Palpatine for this last season here, which has really been involved heavily, which is interesting. The Bad Batch, and then obviously some of the Mandalorian arcs are about cloning, right? This is set literally in the post Wars era. The first days of the Empire is where the Bad Batch exists, and they're clones in and of themselves, the Bad Batch. So it's very interesting to see. I'm excited to see this third season, and they're starting to get into introducing the more evil players of the Empire, these higher ups, and I'm very excited for this to return and wrap up a pretty good story, which I did not expect to honestly get 3 seasons worth of material out of. Go ahead.
It would be crazy to go back in time, and chat with somebody watching, the Star Wars trilogy for the first time, right? And obviously, they say the Clone Wars, right? And I think it's the first film.
Yeah, I fought in the Clone Wars with your father.
Yeah. Like, just go back and tell somebody, it's like, hey, they're about to make 10 times more Star Wars content in the future, and it's pretty heavily going to be driven by cloning. So get prepared for that. It's just interesting that's the thing.
You're going to get 10 seasons plus 3 spin-off seasons and several spin-off shows about the Clone Wars in and of themselves. And also they're animated, by the way. And back then, someone was like melted in the spot. They're like, "What are you talking about?" But I think
and then in like 20 years, that you see those headlines of that sheep dolly that was actually cloned in real life, and they're like, "Oh fuck, it's happening for real. This is bad."
They were telling the truth the whole time. To me, I'd have gone back to 2008 when I watched the Clone Wars, the animated movie, like the first 3 episodes they put in one movie and release, and they're like, "Hey, this character they introduced us, this little Jedi Ahsoka, who is Anakin's Padawan, is going to be integral to the future of Star Wars." And also the show is going to get really, really dark and like, existential towards its end of its, span. So buckle up. I'd have laughed at your face. Like, I'm like, this is a kid's cartoon show. They were saving Jabba the Hutt's son. There's nothing serious about this.
Then you show him the picture of the guy, that's like, oh, this is the guy that's in charge of Star Wars in the year 2028.
Yeah.
And it's just Filoni with his cowboy hat.
Yeah, exactly. And I probably would have had a meltdown right then and there. But they've really, really come a long way in telling this longer story that was never really explored. So I think that's really cool. And the Bad Batch season 3, so they don't have a release date. I assume it's going to be probably end of the year. My guess, like we always say, all these animated shows were probably created all at once. If they're showing off samples and including like dialogue from the show, including Ian McDiarmid, who is not getting younger, by the way. He's definitely up there in age. He was old when he was in the Return of the Jedi, right, as the Emperor for the first time, and they keep bringing him back. So kudos to him. But like, yeah, I'm excited to see them to wrap this show up and kind of be done, I guess, if you will, with the in between episodes 3 and 4 era for a while. On the flip side, Star Wars Episode 10, the I guess, would this be current or future Star Wars? What do we consider this as? Would this be current Star Wars? Like, if
I mean, I can't imagine that there is that there's a plan to like make a new franchise that's like 50 years in the future or 100 years in the future. Yeah. So this is current. So current Star Wars. The next movie, which we're tentatively calling Episode 10, there's no guarantee that it will be episodic or even have a name like that. This is one with Rey coming back to train the new Jedi Order. The new Jedi Order name, which came out to play, apparently has been in works for like 2 years. Like, this isn't like something they announced this weekend and they're just starting to work on it. This has been in work for 2 years, and it looks to be the next theatrical release from Lucasfilm, as it's far enough ahead in production to get there first. Now, first could be 3 years. It could switch around if the Filoni stuff works pretty well. I don't know, but like it looks to be the next one based on the reports coming out over from Star Wars Celebration Europe. Yeah, I mean, I guess very successful Daisy Ridley. She probably could be doing a lot of different projects, so maybe that's what's driving the timeline of putting this out first. I mean, if I could make whatever I wanted happen, it seems like the Filoni movie makes the most sense to come up, right?
Yeah.
But I guess it might depend on the release of, some Disney Plus series, right? We got to get the Ahsoka show out. We got to get possibly another season of Mando. Not 100% sure.
Hopefully not. Well, they are working.
What's
we
going
talked
on
about
with Boba Fett.
Yeah, I was gonna say we talked about both of those shows earlier this year about them already making props for those next seasons. So my guess is yes, it's Ahsoka, Mando. They go right into movie production because I don't see any. The show has to be Thrawn centric, right? Like, to me, the movie is going to be the Thrawn movie at the end of the day. So my guess is like it's gonna be another again, one Ahsoka, another Mando, and then the movie. But I don't know how long it takes. Like, God forbid they don't film this movie in the volume, right? They actually use some real movie making sets to do this. I think that would be important.
And that's going to take more pre-production time. That's going to take Filoni away from his TV series, right? So, divide and conquer. We always, forget Jon Favreau also is involved.
He's actually the main runner of The Mandalorian. So, and the reason I get that is because, again, we're not going to talk about it now, but like season 3 of Mandalorian, there have been complaints here and there, up and down about the show. And I was like, who is actually in charge of the show? Jon Favreau wrote every episode of that show.
Yeah.
And
but
I'm like,
also, sometimes in Hollywood, they have these kind of wars over who gets credited for what. Sometimes, depending on how big of a creator you are when you enter a project, you could negotiate that every episode I get credited as the writer, even if you literally didn't write it, right? Mm-hmm. That can happen. So I'm not saying that that's necessarily what's happening here, but it is hard to imagine just one person cranking out 8 scripts all by themselves, right?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think so. But I think, again, Dave, Dave has been working on Ahsoka, wrapping that up, right? Like, that show is gone. It's in its final production phases. I think he's over there was working on that in tandem with this. Otherwise, they both wouldn't be coming out within the same year.
Yeah. Well, Skeleton Crew, is that supposed to be in this timeline as well?
That you're right. That does exist in this timeline as well. So
we're looking at possibly 3 shows. First, Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, probably one final season of Mandalorian that ends on a crazy cliffhanger, and then Filoni's.
Then Boba Fett
movie.
season 2, obviously, which everyone's demanding. No,
is that just rumored, or is that actually happening?
It's rumored based on the production, is what I've heard, like that. But there's nothing confirmed, nothing's announced for that yet. So
gotcha. Well, I mean, I could imagine, it's one of those things that like a Bob Chapek could have said, yes, make as many Star Wars shows as possible. Mm-hmm. Then now that Iger has come back and said that he's, turning the dial down, I could see a Boba Fett season 2 being, axed.
Right. And I also don't think it's needed, right? I think you could use him as an ancillary character back in Mandalorian, and be better than doing that.
And I always just kind of assume, based on the title too, the Book of Boba Fett, doesn't it just kind of seem like the limited series Boba Fett? You're just getting one of these to kind of wrap up this iconic character that everyone loved.
The sequel is the Books of Boba Fett. They did an Aliens on us, right? Aliens, just one books.
The novelization.
The short stories of Boba Fett. It was all one story. But either way, Star Wars, they say 10 is in the works. We've talked about the writers on this for a while and how it's been works. I wouldn't be surprised if they start rolling at the end of the year, Mike, on this one, if I was completely honest. So we'll keep you guys posted as more and more Star Wars stuff comes out. Slower but steady, right? We have something to look forward to on this stuff. Oh, the other part, Kathleen Kennedy confirmed all Star Wars movies going forward will have the crawl at the beginning. I think it was Rogue One and Solo didn't have the intro crawls, but all movies going forward from Star Wars will have the intro crawls.
They need it. How else are they going to bring back an Emperor out of nowhere?
Right. Well, yeah, goddamn. To me, I don't care if it has it or not. I just think it's fun to have in a Star Wars movie, right? Like, it's not. It doesn't
so
tell me
unique.
this is Skywalker only. I'm like, you can put it in any Star Wars movie. It's fine. So that'll be fun. Let's shift gears into some DC stuff. The Creature Commandos is the animated series announced by James Gunn, probably the first product coming out of the DC universe, right? And he has confirmed that the voice cast for the characters in the upcoming animated series, Mike. And let's go ahead and jump into this. The current there's 2 returning characters, and we'll bookend that. One of the returning characters is Sean Gunn as the character Weasel. And I'm sure he has a lot of dialogue that he will be making Weasel sounds for in this show. Frank Grillo, also known as Crossbones in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, will be Rick Flag Sr., the father of Rick Flag from the Suicide Squad.
Oh man, that news was driving me crazy all week, because the rumor was oh my god, Frank Grillo is tired of Marvel and he says he's gonna go work at DC, and everyone's like, what is he gonna do? Everyone's spinning all these webs, and it's just he's just voicing Rick Flag, a character that already exists. Settle down,
well,
people.
the dad of a character that exists, but at the same time, I'm he's not tired of Marvel. His character was killed off twice. They gave him 2 chances. He'll be, and then they even brought him back for Endgame, right, for the redo of the elevator scene. So he's had his time at Marvel. He got his check, and he's not even that good of an actor. It's whatever.
Ooh, shots fired.
Name something else he's been in.
Well, I can't.
Yeah, damn. Creature Commandos. I even wrote it down for you here. Maria Bakalova as Princess Ilana Rostovic. She's the voice of Cosmo in the upcoming Guardians 3, and was Borat's daughter in the second Borat movie. That's where she got her breakthrough as. So, she's making an upcoming appearances on these movies. Indira Varma as the bride, and I believe was she in the Suicide Squad? I believe she was like maybe the insurgents leader, the leader of the insurgents. Is that right? Or
yeah, sure.
I'm trying to think of what she's. I'm looking at films. Nope, it's not in here. Guess not. Damn, yeah. I thought she was.
It seems like there's a lot of James Gunn, just kind of like DNA of people he likes to work with.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Zoe Chow as Nina Mazursky. Don't know who that is. Alan Tudyk, the Tudyk verse, as usual, is Eric Dr. Phosphorus. I jumped at Dr. Phosphorus. That makes sense for him. David Harbour as Eric Frankenstein, arguably the biggest name on this list, I think, even bigger than Frank Grillo. So David Harbour's Frankenstein. Sean Gunn as G.I. Robot as well. He's playing two characters in this. And I split it up very distinctly so people would know that he's playing two characters. And then Steve Agee, who's a Peacemaker, reprising his role as John Economos. The biggest note here is that the characters can and will make a transition to live action, which was confirmed with Frank Grillo's Rick Flag Sr. coming to, I guess, live action projects later. I don't know what movie he would be in or where they'd put him, but it sounds like that's a case. And when I started listening to something, I'm like, oh, I can see David Harbour being a Frankenstein live action character as well. So,
yeah, I mean, that's an interesting selling point, because usually, like, when you're looking at like an animated cast getting a lot of big names, right? It's a little bit easier to kind of like pull off the offer, right? Because it's just like, hey, you don't even have to leave your house. If you don't have a microphone at your home, we can like send you like a whole kit. You can like knock out all these lines in like one afternoon, and like here's your check, just one day of work, right? You know, but you sweeten the pot a little bit of just like, hey, I'm making a whole universe. You know, this is me also kind of like soft casting you. You know, in the next live action thing that I'm doing.
I think it's the other. I think it's like, we're going to make, if you want to play this, we're going to sign you a contract for lowered rates to play all the stuff as well. Like a package deal, if you will, for the actors. But
I would not be shocked also, like, you know, if Dr. Phosphorus, right? I could see Alan Tudyk playing ball, right? But I could see maybe David Harbour having another more exciting project of just like, no, I'm not going to do the live action. Find somebody else.
Yeah, you know? and it was very interesting because James Gunn did mention all media, so maybe video games as well. If they decide to go down a video game route or something else, maybe that. But you know, so this is, you know, a very, you know, it's actors being cast in these roles. So absolutely. You know, good for them. Hopefully we'll talk more about this more with the Max service later, because this would be an HBO Max thing. But like maybe you know, they were able to secure some funding to get this done. That way the DC doesn't go bankrupt before they get to Superman in like 2 years. So we'll talk more about that later, but we'll get there. So let's shift over to the other part of James Gunn this week. He is out. He's doing press rounds, I believe, for Guardians 3. He's out talking to people about Guardians and celebrating the release and the wrap up of all this stuff. There was some tweet that it's like, here's the second half of phase 1 of DC, and they said like chapter 1 would also include unannounced Animal Man, Lobo, Justice League New Frontier, Superman versus the Authority, Mr. Terrific, and a confirmed second season of Peacemaker. And James Gunn was like, there's no way that's true. He's like, that is not on our list. The only thing that he did say was true is that the second season of Peacemaker will be premiering after Superman Legacy.
That is a while between seasons. Ooh.
Yeah. So hopefully maybe the Waller show, you know, is maybe like a 1.5 season, right, of these characters. And
is it going to be our Book of Boba Fett?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the Book of Amanda Waller. And the maybe Peacemaker season 2 will tie into this larger universe a little bit more, right? I know it had like the guest stars of Aquaman and the Flash at the end of season 1, but like maybe the Superman Legacy stuff will play into it a little more with that. So, I guess that's your problem when one person's running all your shows. You got to wait between everything as he gets projects done, I guess, at the end of it. So,
well, I wonder if Peter Safran will ever say anything to the public.
Yeah,
he's just busy working, I guess.
Yeah, he came out and said something the other day. I forget what it was. He was debunking something. I'm like, okay, that's fine, whatever.
I have a pitch for the two of them. I think they should just rotate years, or maybe even just like rotate quarters of like who talks to the public, right? you know, I want like a Peter Safran year where we just get to see how he deals with the media and talks to fans. You know,
yeah,
I think that'd be funny.
My guess is he's just a businessman. He's like, here's where the bottom line is and where I can make you money. And James Gunn's like, I will be your creative person. Let me go out and be the face. So. They probably have that agreement, but I agree. I think I'd like to see them both come out and do something together rather than just be like, James, go tell the people the stuff with that. That's going to drive us into our next big thing. Owned by Warner Brothers / Discovery, HBO Max is being rebranded / killed off completely and called the Max service. And essentially, this is Discovery, was it Discovery Plus and HBO Max coming together into one service. So yeah, this is going to be your home for some of your HBO stuff because they license some of that shit out elsewhere, or just remove it completely, put it on all those HGTV shows that everyone really wants to go back and rewatch. No. But the other thing was, and you said this to me, the pricing tiers are very interesting. There are 3 pricing tiers. One's ad supported, one is ad free, and one's premium ad free. And
which is like reeking of Verizon's, you know, unlimited data plus, or unlimited data like free forever. It's random branding.
The price points I think are on par with Netflix, right? There's a Netflix ad supported, Netflix ad free, the Netflix HD, which is like their ultimate. You get the 4K stream and 2 extra TVs. So the premium Max service is like you get higher streams and some other. I guess quality of life enhancements in the background rather than the front end of it. But most people will probably go to the middle.
Yeah, the tiers overall didn't bother me too much because I guess I'm technically losing the ability to stream in 4K if I want to stay at my same price point.
No,
but I'm just not a big visual snob to begin with.
You got to have a lot of really, like, your internet, like, you can have good internet to get 1080, but like the bandwidth pushing for 4K is actually pretty massive. You know, as someone who streams a lot and downloads a lot, I look at the bit rates of all these things and have really high quality 4K bit rate. Like, you've got to be, you know, like, your internet, like your router mostly has to be able to push that. Most TVs auto size to 1080 anyway, because that's like the most efficient streaming right now over home Wi-Fi networks, and it won't mess up.
And a lot of the times, even if you pay a streaming service for a 4K stream, you're not truly getting like 4K down. It's going through like a special like kind of like compression codec that they make. So it's never going to be quite, you know, like a 4K Blu-ray or something like that. But I could see how somebody could be annoyed if they're super into the 4K universe, right? And then all of a sudden they have to pay more. That is shitty.
If they're 4K universe and they're relying on streaming, they are tricking themselves at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Like this is where I would say physical media has its benefits in terms of bitrate on disc, right? If you want a true 4K, and it really comes into your banding on your blacks, right? You know what I'm talking about when you see the black lines. Like, there's several black bars where it's supposed to be a gradient from dark black to slightly lighter black, and you're like, oh, that's a compression algorithm Mike was talking about. Discs don't have that. There's no compression whatsoever on discs, and that's why those file sizes are huge, right? They're like I think I downloaded the Lord of the Rings 4K. Non-compressed, it's like 128 gigabytes, and I'm like, this is a lot of stuff to watch, like for just like one movie at the end of the day without the banding, and even my Xbox and my computer next to each other could barely keep up with it at a stream level. So discs have that, but like, yeah, I agree. Like, most people are gonna go down the mid range anyway, right? Like, it's gonna be fine. Most people will just stick with it.
Yeah, and I mean, and from my point of view, because that's really all I can compare it to is just my experiences, it seems like I'm going to be getting more content, right? You know, we don't watch a whole lot of like home improvement, Discovery Plus type of things, but there's a few things that we watch that we haven't been able to watch for a long time because a while ago they used to kind of cross stream some of those things like on like a Hulu or like occasionally like an Amazon Prime, but then they filtered it all into Discovery Plus. So I'll get to watch some of that stuff again, which is nice. But the branding overall, that's kind of like the double-edged sword, the dichotomy for me over here. Because if you look at the actual logo itself, itself, like the actual mark, the letters MAX, they're atrocious. They're super ugly. There's like these weird curves underneath the M. They left the HBO kind of polka dot in between the A of Max, which just feels kind of odd to me. And then the X is like these two weird swirls making the X. The logo itself, the mark is ugly, and I hate it. But I think I would go against everyone else's opinion, where I like the name. I like Max. I understand, people have like a weird aversion to it being like almost like a person's name, or maybe it seems like you're pushing it to the max, crank it to 11. But like, hey,
I take Max over Peacock any day, because I can't say that out loud without be like, people are gonna mishear me. They're gonna think I'm saying something else. So absolutely, I'll take Max.
As long as nobody is just being lazy and saying plus. I think plus, like Disney Plus, Paramount Plus. There was another plus too.
There's ESPN Plus. There's Hulu
ESPN Plus. There's Hulu. Yeah, so like all these pluses, like the plus means nothing anymore. Like the word has been so diluted and has so many different definitions.
Addition to it. There's no plus to it. It's just a stream. It indicates a streaming service, right? The plus is no longer an additional thing.
Well, and then before even HBO turned to HBO Max, it was HBO Go and HBO Now, and that was even extra confusing.
Yeah.
And that's also when streaming services used to be like an ancillary thing, like, oh, this is an extra thing that you can do outside of your cable subscription. But now all of these streaming services, they're becoming their own thing. It's like the company priority for these places. So it almost doesn't even seem like they should have like any sort of like addition, like, right?
No.
Like, that's why I think it makes more sense to name something Max, or even, I know you hate the word Peacock, but at least it makes more sense because like you're trying to brand like a specific thing.
Right. Well, I think
so.
What I like is the single words, the single syllable about it, right? I know that sounds simple, but I'm like, yeah, just go look on Max, or go look on, I say Prime. I don't go look on Amazon Prime. I'm like, go look on Prime. I like the single syllable words. They're just easier to do it when you're having conversations about it, which is what you want to do, right? Or, using your smart home to kind of go look it up. Oh, it's on the Max app or whatever. I think it's just easier. I think Max is maybe, to me, if I'm going to be honest, a little too generic. Right? I think anything can be Max. Like,
should I'm going to roll the dice here, Chris, and go to max.com.
Oh.
Let's see what it is.
One X and you'll be fine.
Holy crap. They own it.
Yeah.
They own it. Max.com.
They probably bought it. They probably bought it from somebody. But I will tell you, the logo, I know you're more of a designer, Mike. It doesn't bother me because it invokes it's a lowercase HBO font from the original HBO with that HBO dot in the middle, right? Like
they just gotta fix some of those.
I like
those letters.
I like the old Max. The old Max. If you go look at Max, HBO Max, and look at the font for it, like the lowercase m with the curves and the X, like just take the HBO dot and put it in the middle of that A and leave that Max, and I'm fine. Like even better. I think the symmetrical M I really, really enjoyed. This one I don't like. I don't like the what is that? The stem on the front of the M on Max here for the new Max service. I'm like, I don't need the stem. I like the curvier letters, but we can't win them all. But at the end of the day, it's fine, right? Maybe more content. The only channel I wish they had, and this is what really disappoints me, is I just want the Food Network on one app with everything else, because I don't care about this like these HGTV shows. That's all when I go to the dentist office. Like I want the Food Network. I want the cooking shows. I want grocery games all on these streaming services.
Theoretically, that's what it should be.
Is the Food Network owned by that?
Yeah, I think they're all under that same conglomerate right there. So that will be your answer.
So to me, is Food Network on Discovery Plus is okay. Well, if it's on there, then by God, I'm going to be excited, because I just associate it with all the other stuff, right? The HGTV stuff. But looking up it here, it's Discovery, TLC, Animal Planet, Food Network, HGTV, ID, whatever that is, A&E, History, Lifetime, OWN, which is Oprah's network, Travel, Science Fiction, CNN, and more. So if that's true, I'm going to be very excited. But
I'm using the Internet Archive tool of the Wayback Machine
Oh
to
my
look
God.
at websites because I have to know what else Max used to be because that's just one of those words, like go.com, where you can tell like during like the internet bubble, like people were competing.
Is this a WhiteHouse.com issue? Are we having a
No,
.com versus
well, at least
.gov?
At least not in February 23rd, 2008. I just picked like a random date. It was just some garbage like nutritional supplement website where you can tell that they just bought the domain name to just hawk some pills that wouldn't do.
These are people who haven't eaten McDonald's in 20 years, Mike. You leave them alone.
Yes, this is exactly what they are. So yeah, man, I just want to know how much they paid for this domain. It was not cheap. Somebody had a nice payday out of there for sure.
Yeah, sitting on that for a while. So absolutely. So let's go ahead and get into the probably more controversial part of this announcement,
or at least more interesting part of just us talking about letters and branding.
Yeah, so there's like a dozen shows announced, but a lot of them are things that aren't relevant to the show. So we'll go through the ones that I think are most relevant to us. First and foremost is one of the most lucrative franchises in the world, despite if we leave the creator out of it, it's a great franchise, and that's the Harry Potter series. However, there's a huge stain on this thing. Harry Potter with J.K. Rowling and her just being an awful person all around at the end of the day. So
I mean, the writing has been on the wall for something like this forever, right?
Yes.
Like we all knew eventually this was going to happen.
Yes. So they are doing a TV series 10 years or 10 years of Harry Potter. So looking at possibly, I would say not 10 seasons, like one season per book. There are 7 books, so obviously there will be some space in between there, right? But
the books also get a little bit longer too.
Yes, absolutely.
So maybe they break, just like they did with the movies, break it into 2 seasons.
Absolutely. So the movies, they distilled a lot of stuff down into 2 hours, 2.5 hours for a lot of these. So using this as an episodic series, they'll be able to tell more Game of Thrones style across all of these. So Harry Potter is I would say the biggest IP announcement out of this, right? They have said they're looking for a more diverse cast around, which is good on them. Doesn't fix everything else, but this will be something that is, I believe, a huge investment from the Max service to draw in people. Now, Max, when does that start? Is it like May?
It's supposed to be May, yeah.
So this is not ready none of these shows are going to be ready for launch. So except maybe one of them. One of them might be at launch, but none of these are ready for launch. They're just like, hey, in a couple years, if you stick around with us, you're going to get this nice Harry Potter series.
Yeah, and also you gotta wade through a lot of this investor jargon and positioning by Zavlov, the CEO, right? Because this was kind of all announced at. I believe it was like an investor day type of situation. So this wasn't like a Comic-Con panel, right, where they're talking to the fans. And, we'll talk about the Penguin trailer in a second, but there's like text right on the Penguin trailer that says in production, right? Yeah. So you can tell they're like, we have to announce this brand new streaming service and we have to get people hype. Give me what you got. I don't care if it's done or not. Just give me anything that I can announce. So I would not be shocked at all if this Harry Potter series never comes to fruition, right? But this is exactly the type of thing that you would announce when you're announcing like a brand new streaming service. Like, hey, I'm the new CEO. Everyone has hated me in Hollywood for the last 2 years because I've been culling the archives, right? I've been trying to make money. I've been making all these moves, pissing everybody off. But guess what? 10 years of Harry Potter. Here's the middle finger. Yeah. Now you love me, don't you? And it's just like, well, you got a lot that you have to navigate through for sure.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, right? Like blue sky it. This is more successful in every metric than the movies. J.K. Rowling pulls a George Lucas in a sense of she sells her entire Harry Potter IP to like Warner Brothers, right? If they could even afford it. But they could pull together investors if they were buying Harry Potter, that's for sure. And then you don't have to worry about the whole nonsense going on between J.K. Rowling and the fans anymore. And then you could just truly like indulge as a Harry Potter fan into this IP. And I wouldn't be surprised if that gets floated across her desk every once in a while. Some Max lawyer shows up and it's just like, hey, like, if you're ever thinking about just selling it,
I could also see like Warner Brothers creating a Wizarding World branch / studio that is entirely for that IP, right? Like they don't just own the IP. Like they pull a Lucasfilm for Wizarding World. Like, hey, here's our here's what we're gonna do, one more of these Fantastic Beasts movie with our new Wizarding World branch, who is removed from everybody, horrible, and these are true fans of the series and stuff like
and
that.
And they do basically what every other kind of streaming Hollywood studio has been doing. Okay, we're gonna do a couple one-off like animated series of Harry Potter, right? Let's do like our own anthology of shorts where you can show different parts of the wizard.
The animated version of that play that nobody can get tickets to.
Yeah, exactly. So there's so many things that they can do with this. It's actually almost kind of what Avatar Studios is doing over at like Nickelodeon / Paramount. So it just sucks. It's hard to get really excited about this when the creator is just so vehemently against one part of like the population that is already just gets shit on all of the time,
right?
Because people need like a scapegoat for their problems.
It's just easier to shut up when you're like a millionaire, right? Like just shut up, take your money, you've got your money, you'll get it for years, just shut up and go away.
I think she's technically a billionaire, so that makes it unfortunately even worse.
Whatever she is, right? She has a lot of money and she can do whatever she wants for the rest of her days. Just shut up and go somewhere, disappear for a bit. Sign off like George Lucas did for years on the expanded universe stuff. Just like, I'll run by the story, sign off on it, get out of the way. But
I think weirdly it worked out really, really well for his public perception. I mean, he wasn't anywhere as badly
negative
viewed because he just seemed to be a fine person that just kind of made some bad prequels, right?
Well,
but he sold off Star Wars, and everyone's like, "Oh, we love George Lucas now. What a visionary storyteller."
he again to bring back Star Wars. George Lucas knows how to build a world, right? He knows how to sell his universe. He's just not really good at dialogue. And no one he was too big for no one to tell him no, don't do that. So that was his problem. But like he said, he wasn't a bad person. He was never a horrible person at the end of the day. But that's what this series is gonna suffer. But like I said, this is all great announcements, but until something actually happens, it's all theory. It's all theory. So,
and that's the like I said, the best case scenario for Harry Potter. Worst case scenario, what I think is it gets at least one season. Everyone hates it because maybe just the quality of it's just bad. They picked a bad creative team. They forced to push it out.
They brought the Game of Thrones guys in to do season 1, and just
they give it a second season just because they try to right the ship. Nobody likes it, and then it's canceled. They're going to try to retool it. Basically, the same thing that happened with Fantastic Beasts. They just tried to have it limp along, and it didn't work.
Yeah. So this may come through. It may not. So Harry Potter's #1 franchise. Shifting gears, Game of Thrones, like I just mentioned, a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms Hedge Knight has been announced as a series for the streaming service. I don't know what this is, and I'm too afraid to Google it. So if you're a Game of Thrones fan, you're going to get more series set in this universe.
I think it's supposed to be further back in the past. I could be wrong, but I think it's supposed to be a little bit more detached from the characters and the families. Maybe I might just be talking about the side of my ass right now.
Yeah, well, that's cool. So apparently it's a collection of stories by various fantasy authors. Or it's a story that was in one of his that he released in 1998, like an older one. So either way, I'm not gonna look into this anymore. But that is coming. The Penguin, as Mike mentioned, we know that's been in production. That's now been moved to, instead of HBO Max, to a Max series. We get a little featurette about the production of it, some scenes from it. It's about a minute and a half. Not too bad. I mean, it looks fun, right? Like,
I forgot. Honestly, it's been so long since I've seen the Batman when it came out. I forgot how good Colin Farrell is as the Penguin. Like, he is chewing up, eating every scene that he's in. Like, I can definitely see him holding down an entire series based on his own, and I really wouldn't be too bummed that Batman's not in it.
It looks like what was that mafia show on HBO?
Sopranos?
It looks like Sopranos in the Batman universe, right? Like, it literally looks like that. Like, no one's got superpowers. Like, it's all about mob crime families set in Gotham, right? But this Gotham's not, it's more realistic than the last time we saw the Penguin.
Yeah. Now, they show him walking around a lot in this trailer with, like, a limp that kind of gives him, like, this kind of penguin waddle. Did he have that in the movie, Or did like Batman beat him up and then gave him that limp? I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I'll have to go back and revisit that. So, but this is coming. I wouldn't be surprised. This is later this year, right? A surprise fall announcement for the Penguin, or maybe first thing next year. Well, they look like they're quite along in it.
It says coming 2024 at the end of it, and then at the end of this trailer, it also says May 23rd is when the streaming service kicks off.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe first thing next year, right? Kick off with the Penguin. So, yeah, you can check out that featurette in our show notes. Tiny Toons Looniversity, a animated show based on the Tiny Toons Adventures, right, is coming to this. Really leaning into the Looney Tunes properties in Warner Brothers these past couple of years.
I mean, Zaslav has basically said straight up that like we are only going to make stuff from IP that works, right? From well-known stuff. We're not going to take chances and try to make a hit out of nowhere. They're not looking to make their own Stranger Things like lightning in a bottle. Let's just take stuff we already own and have it make money, which is indicated by these 5 bullet points that we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I was trying to look up, Looney Tunes, or was it? What is that? Looney Tunes? What's the one that's on there right now? They're doing.
I don't remember the name, but yeah, they have like a newer kind of Looney Tunes.
It's still going, like it's still on there, kind of thing. Looney Tunes cartoons. There it is, 2020. They have, I think, 5 seasons so far, and they're still not canceled yet. So they are absolutely still going to town on these Looney Tunes characters. Animaniacs, I think, just wrapped up, right? They did get that reboot done, and Tiny Toons Looniversity is set in the same world. So yeah, they're taking these classic characters and just running with them. And lastly, Gremlins: The Secrets of the Mogwai. It's an interestingly looking animated show is coming. This is the only one I think that is launching in May on Max itself. This is a launch date service, but it's been in the works for years.
Yeah, this was always an HBO Max type of thing. So Zaslav is just kind of like rebranding it. He just like we said, he needed things to announce to the investors, but. Man, like, I loved Gremlins. I grew up with those movies. I watched them when I was way too young and too impressionable, right? So I kind of liked how, like, adult it was. And, like, the first one's basically like a horror movie for the most part. Yeah. And the second one is just, like, wild.
Horror comedy.
There's a whole Key and Peele sketch about how out of pocket that second movie is. But, man, like, this trailer's bad. Like, this just looks like the straight up, like, kids show.
It looks like it's even animated similarly like how modern kid shows are animated, right? Especially on like YouTube,
Gizmo is in it doing things that just like Mogwai have never.
He's never been called Gizmo in the movies either, which is interesting that they call him that in the show.
And it's just like I get it, like. I say this a lot of times on the podcast where like, oh, why do people care about Velma? Nobody cared about Scooby-Doo until, the creator, was trying to do something different with it, So I don't want to be that same person that's just like, no, not my Gremlins, even though they haven't done anything with the Gremlins for so long. I was just kind of hoping it was going to be more in vain with the fan base that already likes Gremlins, right? No. If this is like a kid show for kind of like transitional ages, like your 10s, your 12s, your 14s, right? Becoming like a teenager. Like, they didn't grow up watching Gremlins. They don't know what Gremlins is. Like, you're basically pitching a brand new show to them.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, you go and ask my wife's 5th graders, what have you ever seen Gremlins? And they're like, no. What are you talking about? So this seems in the vein of that younger age.
And you can't tell them to go watch those movies, right? Yeah. This almost feels like back in the day when like RoboCop had like kids action figures. Yeah. Like, kids should not be watching RoboCop.
The other thing I think we should be very, very cognizant of here. This is very much a show filled with people from Asia, right? The show is set in Asia, and they have voice cast. The primary voice cast are Asian Americans or from other maybe Asian canons. I don't know. They're very much leaning into that, using the actual actors from that region to voice the characters, which I think is a great thing here.
The creator of the show, or I guess the showrunner of it, he's very active on Twitter. He's very supportive when it comes to like kind of like the writing community, and I see him retweet a lot of people, try to connect with a lot of people. He's always looking to connect with like diverse audiences and creators, which is great. And if you could point to one glaring, really bad thing about the Gremlins, I guess franchise, as it were, an insanely insensitive, stereotypical depiction of Asians at the beginning of the movie when it comes to like where these Mogwai come from, right? Like totally bad take. But
that's what the show is, the origin of them, so that makes sense that they
so I'm glad that they're kind of like, you know, re-seizing kind of like that awful depiction. But yeah, it's just weird to pivot the show towards kids when it has never really been about children.
Well, you've got to get people to watch it, and I feel either a reboot or a requel is in the horizon for Gremlins, right? Like a live action like a sequel reboot, if you will.
I could see, like, you know, bring back the kind of like teens that were in the first one and now they're adults or something like that.
That, or, you know, like, hey, it's just a continued story in the same universe. There's little Easter eggs here and there to the other one, but like, you know, if they're enough to get a show, there's probably enough interest and money out there, funding to make that show, and maybe not to service. There have been a lot of, you know, again, like you mentioned, Gremlins 1 is a horror film, right? At the end, at its core, there's a lot of horror films being successful right now on low budgets, right? All the Scream movies, the Halloween movies are back, and A24.
So I know this was 84, and the movie ratings were not quite the same as they were, but the first Gremlins is rated PG. That is really funny.
Yeah. So
now I gotta look up the second one. Yeah. Gremlins 2 came
Secret
out
of the Ooze.
6 years later in 1990, and it's rated PG-13. But that one's a little bit more wacky.
That one had a lot of parody in it, right? Like a lot of like silliness, like the newscaster Gremlins and stuff like that. The Rocky Horror. But yeah, so I mean, it's in there. There are also a bunch of other shows from Discovery and some other HBO stuff that were announced. That we're not talking about. What was it? That couple who redo houses. Chip and Joanna, they're doing a hotel, apparently, and I'm like, we don't need to put this on the show.
Could you fathom a guess of, because we were just talking about voice acting.
Oh no,
right? And actors who voice act characters that just kind of make noises, right? In Gremlins 2, the new batch, could you possibly venture a guess who voiced Gizmo?
Fred Tatasciore.
Howie Mandel.
Oh well, there you go. Is this before or after he was a germaphobe?
And I forgot, you literally ran into this man not too long ago, John Glover.
Oh,
yeah. In Gremlins 2.
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's a bunch more stuff coming to Max. Gremlins will be there next month, so that'll be like one of the first things. So, yeah. So in other news this week, because of course there's HBO Max press, Amazon has decided to get in on this stuff. They're like, you know, we just acquired MGM, right? We've got some properties in this MGM libraries. We're gonna filter through some of these and pick some out. There are a tentative list of properties, Mike, coming from Amazon, MGM's acquirement. Coming up, one of those is RoboCop, talking about getting TV shows and movies in the RoboCop universe. Stargate, I like the Stargate stuff. That's my kind of sci-fi. I really enjoy that. Getting more TV shows and movies. They wrapped up all their shared universe a while ago. Legally Blonde, Fame, Barbershop, The Magnificent Seven, The Pink Panther, not to be confused with the Black Panther, by the way, and the Thomas Crown Affair for some reason. Getting some more stuff on this stuff. But apparently a lot of these have complex rights due to previous productions and like how those were licensed before Amazon acquired them. But like, to me, you know, there's a RoboCop game coming out, right? We've talked about that. Like a first-person RoboCop shooter game coming out. That's always popular. Stargate, you know, huge sci-fi things. These two things kind of resonate with me a little bit. So I'm interested to see if they actually do anything with them, you know, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Pink Panther, if you only are thinking of it as the old animated cartoon show,
I didn't even think of that. I was actually thinking of the old live action movies.
Yeah, it's actually about like a wacky kooky detective, right? You know, you could totally see them rebooting that with like a newer, more famous person.
They did the Steve Martin ones in the 2000s, which I don't think anybody watched. They did too, right?
Yeah.
So.
maybe, yeah. So you could easily see them doing more of that. Legally Blonde, I think, Chris, you could, like you were saying, like a requel in a way. I know it hasn't been that long, but you could see them making a third one, or
a TV series.
Since it's all about, law, procedure, and stuff like that, you could see them doing like a limited series, right, for like 8 episodes where it's like one long case that she's working. Stargate. Yeah, I don't know much about the show. Is that something that you think is more in the bounds of being rebooted or continued on?
So it's interesting because there was a movie in the early 90s, right, of Stargate, and even had not Russell Crowe, what's his name? The soldier himself, Russell. I will figure it out later. Someone's yelling at me. But and James Spader. But like when they did the TV show, those characters carried over, but they were recast as different people, like different actors for TV shows. So I think this show is great, but I think it's probably in need of a reboot rather than a connecting series. They can have Easter eggs. These are all different universes. A Stargate connects different universes and different planets.
If you're already saying universes, right, that's a great way to bring back maybe original cast, kind of almost like J.J. Abrams' Star Trek style, right?
Christopher Judge, who voices Kratos in the new, God of War games, he got his big thing as an actor on that show, like consistently as an alien actor in that show. So, absolutely, it's I think it's a fun show, and a lot of high concept sci-fi things. I think it's fantastic. I would love a reboot more than a connected piece, but I think that's great.
I think they could do something cool with RoboCop if they got the right creator, right? The best parts about the RoboCop films were always kind of like the cultural observations, the satirical takes on, capitalism and, policing and stuff like that. So if they could bring somebody in that also has like a vision of like humor, wackiness,
Tim Miller.
But also just, Tim Miller would be great. Yeah, I'm sure he would.
He's got action and CG and humor all in that, I think.
And we won't talk about that other RoboCop movie
the
that came
2014
out.
The first half I really didn't care for. The second half was really good. Like there's like there's a divide in that movie where it just clicks, and like it's really interesting to think of it. It's got some good clips. I think there's some good clips. Gary Oldman's in it, right? A national treasure as well. But like it's just I think it had some good ideas, but I think it needs to be less serious. I think the 2014 took itself too seriously at the end of the day.
Yeah, so. You need wacky commercials on TVs in the background where I'll buy that for $1, like just weird stuff like that. So the weirder the better. Put Weird Al in it. Make Weird Al Yankovic the RoboCop.
No, don't do that. Stop that. Stop that. So yes. We're hitting that point in the show, folks. So Amazon, there's a list of stuff there. So let's shift gears. We're going to talk Marvel, Disney for the rest of the show here. First up, Hulu. Bob Iger says that has confirmed this week that Comcast could force Disney to purchase their stake in Hulu if they wanted to. And they would have to cash them a check. Now there's no guarantee. I don't know why this was even brought up. Like no one's saying they're going to do it or whatever. But I think it's interesting in the contract, right? That like we can be like, yeah, if we want you to buy it, you would have to buy it from us at whatever value.
So what's the current ownership stakes right now?
I think
of Hulu.
I think it's 2/3 Disney, 1/3 Comcast. Majority. I think there might be some other smaller players, but those are the two big ones.
Yeah, I mean, like Comcast is a huge, gigantic organization. I mean, so is Disney. I mean, I could see either one of them footing the bill to pay for it. Like they can afford it, but in this climate, I don't think Disney wants to spend money, right? They're trying to make more money out of the stuff that they have, which seems to be the theme for streaming services right now. But I mean, I'm kind of curious what even is Hulu, right? At its very core, if me and you, Chris, right, if we were able to like scrounge up some cash and buy 100% ownership of Hulu, beyond getting like the workforce and like the tech stack, right, that runs the app. The actual things that we're buying, is it just the HBO original? I mean, the Hulu originals, right? Because, I mean, if you let all the, streaming, contracts expire, you're not getting the ABC shows streamed on there anymore. You're not getting the FX shows that are streamed on there. So is it just the straight-up Hulu originals? And there's really not a lot of them that are like super iconic. You
Why
got, like,
would
The Handmaid's Tale? That's probably the most iconic one.
Why would FX not be on there? Since they're owned by...
Well, yeah, because FX is owned by, which was Fox, which is owned by Disney. Well, so, like, that's what I'm saying.
They put there is FX on Hulu. They still do that, though, I guess, is my big thing
but
here.
it does make you wonder truly, like, where does that content lie, right? Is it FX on Hulu? Like, oh, we're just doing day and date releases on your streaming services, but we still own the content. So that's what I'm kind of confused. Like, what is Hulu? Because to me, my perception of Hulu is that's where I go to watch, like, my ABC shows, my Freeform shows. Me and my wife are rewatching Modern Family, which is an ABC show, and that's on Hulu right now. So if Comcast was to buy Hulu, does Disney make the decision to, like, take Modern Family and take Abbott Elementary off of Hulu and move it to Disney Plus, or do they just leave it on there and let Comcast pay them for that content? So I think that's the confusing thing, is nobody really knows what Hulu truly is at its core.
Hulu, to me, Hulu is an aggregated service provider, right? It's because you get stuff on here. Like, I just pull up Hulu originals. The only things I've heard on Hulu originals recently: History of the World Part 2, which is Mel Brooks. There is apparently Hulu has Animaniacs, even though we just talked about it being on HBO for some reason. It's a Hulu original. DreamWorks, there's a bunch. There's like little stuff on here. It's really weird stuff. Nothing I watch. Right? I've never paid for Hulu. I don't use it. But what I think my solution to this is, Mike, is what they do in every other fucking country, is put Hulu in their Disney Plus app. Like, it's literally you go into Disney Plus, and on the far right is Hulu, or Star, or Hulu, or whatever it is. It's all together in one app, because I would never get this by itself. There's nothing in here that says, I really need to have this for anything in particular at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a list of, like, A to Z of their original shows, and I'm sure there's, like, good stuff in here, but, like, absolutely nobody in the world, like, associates Hulu with these originals, right? They're thinking of FX shows, they're thinking of ABC shows, right? They're thinking of things that this is just the distribution platform, like you're saying.
But there's no FX app, there's no ABC app. That's the problem. Like, this is what it is. Because I'm looking here, I forgot all the Fox's animated shows go here, right? The day after, like Family Guy, Bob's Burgers, American Dad. I believe Rick and Morty was even day after. When King of the Hill comes out, it'll be on here. Futurama will be here this summer. It is a home for, like, the day after stuff, but, like, I don't even think of these anymore, right?
Yeah, and I mean, some of these shows, this would be like a good catalog, to buy. I'm almost thinking, like, what if you're like a Roku or something, right? And you want to make, like, a really big purchase. Roku picked up the pieces of Quibi, and I'm not saying Hulu is a Quibi at all, but, like, if you're like a streaming service that's maybe like B or C tier, and you're just trying to, like, level up your game a little bit, maybe buying this Hulu original catalog wouldn't be too bad.
I don't think Hulu will ever sell. They're still at the top of the chain, right? A lot of people I know have Hulu. But I just realized you can add on your other streaming services to this and watch those shows in there. You can add HBO Max, Showtime, Cinemax, and Stars, and watch them in one app. Like, that's the goal, right? We all want one app to watch everything.
Well, I mean, you can do that in Prime. You can do it on Apple TV, which... Is that hardware or is that software? What exactly really even is that? So
right. But it's interesting.
We are living in a day and age where it's just hard to define anything out there that's streaming, right?
If again, the biggest thing, Disney owns it. We all know Disney owns it. Just put it all into one app, and we have one home to go to for all your Disney, Fox stuff at the same time. Like, include your parental controls like every other country does, and keep it simple. That way, all your stuff's there, right? Like, we don't have to go. If you want to watch Family Guy, you're not going to Disney Plus right now. You have to go to Hulu, and so you have to have two subscriptions. It's just really, it's not fun. It's not good. But the whole point of this is, if Comcast says buy it, you have to buy it, Disney. So that's to me the interesting part of this, when Disney is the one at, like, I guess at the other end of the gun for once. So
yeah, I think I saw. I don't remember if we talked about this on the show or not. Or maybe I just sent a text of it to you. But there could be, like, a bargaining chip on the table, right? Maybe Disney is like, oh, we'll actually sell it to you, Comcast, at a pretty good deal. If because I think that conglomerate, because Comcast, Universal, They own the theme park rights east of the Mississippi in Florida for that for the Marvel content. So there could be trades going on there when it comes to Disney trying to get that back. That is a possibility.
Yeah, there's just tons of stuff in play. We never have our entertainment lawyer on hand, sadly. But it'd be interesting just to know what's going on behind the scenes, right? Like what chess pieces are on the board to make it even. All right, so for Marvel, I want to talk about this because this has been kind of on my mind all week, and I've gone through it a couple times. The Marvels trailer, Mike, our first trailer for the Marvels, they did have this at Comic-Con maybe last year, 2 years ago, and I was able to listen to audio but not see it, and the audio lines up exactly with that. So this is the Captain Marvel sequel called The Marvels, coming out this November in theaters, and it features three main characters from the Marvel Universe: Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel; Monica Rambeau, aka Photon, I think is what her name will be; and Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, who just got her own show. And it seems that this movie picks up really immediately where Miss Marvel ended, right? They even use a scene from the show in the trailer for this. Whenever Kamala and Carol change places due to some quantum entanglement, it sounds like.
Yeah, it looks like so I'm kind of just rewatching the trailer just on mute while we're talking about this, and I was going to bring this up. The scene where they're in Kamala's house, like in her living room, like before Brie Larson lands and destroys on the table, like there's like a beam in the living room that has like a big like hole punched in it. Yeah. So is that from the results of the last episode?
No, that's actually from. You see, there's a scene where the Kree are fighting Monica Rambeau in the house, and they accidentally change places again.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So like she's like phases through the beam goes through her. Like that was taking place before all of this somehow, and then they trade places back. There's no seem to be rhyme or reason yet about why they changed places. But what was cool is in the end they're fighting the villain, whose character name in the comic books is Dar Bin, is her name. She's only been like one issue, very, very subtle character. Like there's no history to pull out from this. But you see Kamala like use her, I guess, crystallization powers to build a shield. And when she does, she immediately transforms into Monica Rambeau, who sends a beam back at this person. So I'm very excited to see them use this, I guess, not transfiguration, but like swapping places feature in this final battle and some other stuff throughout this. Because it's a lot more action in this trailer than I anticipated for this trailer, for the Marvels being a high concept, but it seems to have again the action, the humor. Nick Fury is here. I did want to call that out, right? Is this set after Secret Invasion? You think? Like, is that why we're getting Secret Invasion first and then this?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. And if that is the case, it seems like Secret Invasion maybe is not Nick Fury's swan song, right?
Yeah.
Now, theoretically, I guess you could kill off Nick Fury in Secret Invasion, then he continues, as a Skrull. That's a possibility. But it's weird for me to think, Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson being in this universe for so long. I don't think he just wants to sign off and go off in a TV show, right? He wants to be like the big sacrifice in a movie or something like that.
He's gonna have 4 or 5. He doesn't want that. He's always the secret guy you have in your back pocket. Like, right? Like, he's got 4 or 5 gravestones across the world he keeps visiting because, like, I'm dead. Look at that. So,
but Chris, you hit the nail on the head, though. You said this is high concept. I feel like they have a lot that they're going to have to kind of explain to the audience, right? Because we had a whole Disney Plus series of trying to explain just Kamala's powers and everything. And at the very end, apparently she has some sort of connection to... So, I'm trying to remember the order of operations, or at least the order of like powers here. So Captain Marvel gains her power from the Tesseract, right?
Correct.
And which stone is inside of the Tesseract?
Technically, the Space Stone.
The Space Stone, right? And then the Space Stone, was the Space Stone used to give Wanda her powers?
No, that was a Mind Stone. That was a scepter.
Yeah, so I thought maybe there would be a thread because Monica Rambeau seems to have similar powers. Mm-hmm. Well, so I'm just trying to figure out, like, how are they all like connected? Because we also have this whole literal X factor of Kamala's also supposed to be like a mutant. So I'm just trying to figure out how they
it's not-
narratively stitch all of this together. You know,
I know exactly how they do it, and I'm not telling you because I know too much about this movie from reading the internet. But if you will notice, Kamala has a band, right? One of her bands, and that's what she uses her powers from the band, right? Currently, that is how we know it. The character they're fighting at the end of the trailer that I mentioned, where they're swapping places. If you go through frame by you don't have to go through frame by frame, but if you don't look, you'll miss them swap places so quickly. She has a band on her arm as well of a different color. So we're trying to figure out maybe what these are. These the quantum bands? Are these the nega bands? These are Kree items that have been in the comic books for decades. So maybe like Kamala's powers, are tied to the Kree. Captain Marvel's tied to the Kree, right? Monica Rambeau, I don't know. Again, she only went through. She was exposed to Wanda's magic, not necessarily the stone itself, right? Because in WandaVision and by extension Doctor Strange, we found out it's not really the stone that gave her powers. It just awakened her I guess she was predestined to become the Scarlet Witch kind of thing. So like what power, like she's got some sort of light-based powers, it seems like. But
I feel like we've just basically come to the point where the MCU has been around long enough now, and it hasn't quite been plotted out as exactly as fans would like to believe. We're even starting to get things that are like basically getting retconned, if that's even like the right word, right? We want Scarlet Witch to literally be a witch because we want to tell a lot more stories in the MCU about witches, right? About Agatha and these covens and everything like that. So she actually needs to be a witch. She can't just be somebody with, Mind Stone powers, right? Because that's not really a witch. So they need to go back and redo that. So I feel like I'm cautiously optimistic about this movie because Kamala's in it. She's very infectious, even though I had mixed feelings about how her show ended. I feel like there could be like just a fun repartee going on between this cast in this film. But we still are waiting for Brie Larson's Captain Marvel to have a personality, and I don't even think that's necessarily even negotiable in a way of like she had amnesia for most of her movie. We don't even really know who she is. She pops up in the Avengers movies afterwards, as like this, kind of like take no gruff badass, right? Which is fine. She can be that character, but we've just never really learned how she's come into this. So I'm hoping they give her some personality on screen in a way so we can actually fall in love with her, much like Kamala has fallen in love with her in the movie.
I think she has personality. I just don't think it's the one people are looking for. She's not. She is a warrior through and through. That's how she was trained after the amnesia. She was in the military before that. I think she is a no-nonsense person and very much strategic based, which I think will be interesting in opposition to Kamala's young innocence, right? Like infatuation with superheroes. But there are some time frames. She was alive during the blip, so hopefully they will give us some of those journeys in here. There's at one point it looks like there's a dancing number, and you see Brie Larson's character like uncover her face. Either she's transported there, or she's sneaking through this down, one of the two. But I'm excited to see these again, a trio of people who have very different outlooks on things, right? Like in WandaVision we get the feeling Monica and Carol don't see eye to eye for some reason, possibly the death of Monica's mother Maria, and then Kamala's like infatuous superheroes and she just got her powers. But I'm very excited to see this mixture of these characters come together in this. And honestly, what I enjoyed about, like, there are some Earth scenes, but it looks like most of this is set in space at the end of the day, right? Like, it looks to be very much not Earth-based, which is great because we've been on Earth, I think, way too much lately.
I've been going frame by frame.
Okay,
like you told me through here. Yeah, there's definitely bangles. There's other MacGuffins at foot here, and also there at one point there seems to be a horde of cats.
Yes,
I think are flurkins.
I bet they're flurkin kittens 100%. As a cat owner, very excited to see those.
Right after the little flurkin horde, you get the scene where you get to see, I guess, the villain that you're talking about. Looks like she's holding Ronan the Accuser's hammer.
She's a Kree, yeah. So she, I believe, is an accuser. I guess role of the Kree Empire of what's left of it. So we're going from Nick Fury Skrulls to Nick Fury Kree, all within like next to each other, which I'm very excited about. Like, we haven't gotten this part of the MCU in a long time, right? It's been very, very otherverse. I guess otherversal But I would love to. My favorite part is obviously where Kamala. She's like, "Where were you?" She's like, "Where's Kamala?" It's like, "Right where I was." And then it shows her like land, and then obviously we have Goose there walking like very, very not aggressively. He's like very confident. He just like eats all those, I guess, Kree, and then it freaks out. I just love Goose. I think he's a fun character as a cat in these movies. So. Very excited to take a look at it. The trailer's in our notes if you guys haven't seen it. November, we are a long shot away for this, but very excited to see the trailer in theaters next to Guardians of the Galaxy in like 2 weeks. We're like 2 weeks away from that, Mike. Can you believe that? Mm-hmm. Blade, in surprising casting announcement this weekend, has added actress Mia Goth to this movie. If you're not familiar with her, she has been the lead in such movies as there was X, which was a sequel to what was the first one in that trilogy?
Yeah, there's the two movies, Pearl and X.
X, Pearl, and then there's a third one coming out, Maxine, and then she's also just starred in the very body horror Brandon Cronenberg's movie. I forget what it's called, but it's very
Infinity
Pool, which is very disgusting. By the way,
she's like a horror darling all of a sudden, just out of nowhere.
Yeah. Also married to Shia LaBeouf, in case you didn't know that.
I had no idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Been together for a long time, apparently. But we don't know what her role is at the time. The biggest rumors right now, she's playing Lilith, the daughter of Dracula, in this.
I mean, honestly, I'm not trying to be mean. Yeah. I'm just pointing out an observation. If you Google image search Mia Goth, she does kind of look vampiric.
Yeah. She's. I heard this theory the other day. Like Hollywood actors, like they're all pretty, but like they all have like one like interesting look about them that makes them look different, right? Like they're
I think
good looking, but they have their interesting look. But
she has extremely blonde eyebrows. Mm-hmm. So if you catch like a photo of her in the right light, it just looks like she doesn't have eyebrows.
Yeah.
Which I'm not bemoaning anybody that doesn't have eyebrows,
Yeah.
But like it's just the, like you said, the unique factor.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, obviously, horror darling in this. But I don't agree with the rumors that she's going to be playing a villain. Right? She could literally be playing somebody else. Anybody in the Blade universe, really. But most people seem to be leaning into that she's playing a villain of some kind. But I don't know. Blade has been in the works for a very, very long time, and I will be excited when this movie gets to theaters and we can watch it finally. It's the last movie. Now it is the last movie of the 2019 Comic-Con that was announced has not been released. So we are in the countdown for them. Deadpool 3, just in case anyone was wondering, the actress who played Vanessa and actor who played Colossus will be back in the third movie. So, I think a lot of people were upset. What was it? What's the name? The actress who played Vanessa, the love interest, right, in the first one. She kind of got shafted in the second one, right? They kill her off, I think, pretty early. Like in the beginning of the movie, isn't it? They kill her because of the explosion in the thing. She really didn't get a lot of screen time. So we'll see what they do with her in this one. Marina Baccarin is her name. Yeah. So I
mean, great to have Colossus back as well.
Yeah.
He's the great kind of like straight character to Deadpool's like goofiness.
Yeah, absolutely. We need consistency in this. That's a very consistent thing there. Lastly, Wonder Man is apparently filming out in LA. Ben Kingsley, Trevor Slattery was spotted on set while they're filming. Destin Daniel Cretton is the showrunner on this, so he'll probably be there. So I expect more set photos to leak over time, Mike, kind of confirming, Wonder Man and the Grim Reaper and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's got long hair.
Yeah.
I don't remember what his hair situation was in Shang-Chi.
It's the same hair.
Oh, okay.
yeah, he had the longer hair there because he had the Mandarin ponytail like in Ant-Man 3. So yeah, he carried it over pretty well. But that's a character I never thought would get a second chance on screen ever in my life, and he ended up being in a pretty good movie for Phase 4. So pretty interested to see what they do with that going forward in the Wonder Man world as well.
I'm guessing he's going to be like an acting coach or something like that.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, maybe he'll be like a background extra.
Yeah. You think they're going to let him do a remake of Planet of the Apes where he's pretending to ride the horses? They're just acting. So, all right, well, that's the show. That's a little longer episode than we thought, but when we get to Max Talk, it maxes out our showtime. Mike.
That's true.
But it's not Showtime, it's HBO. This is a whole lot of horrible puns going
Showtime
on
is
here.
Paramount Plus, I think, and I think they are supposed to be combining their services, much like Max and Discovery. So.
Really? I'm gonna have
I
to
think
Google
so. I think it's supposed to be happening. I don't know if it happened already, but I thought they were joining into like one.
I see.
Mega app.
Showtime Anytime. Who owns Showtime?
And who? I mean, Paramount Plus, worst name for a streaming service ever. Nobody knows what Paramount Studio is to begin with, right?
Look, in those regards, Peacock is the same. Nobody knows what Peacock Studios is.
But they don't have to, because Peacock is just an animal.
Well, they don't have to with Paramount. It's just a name.
No, it's a studio.
Showtime is
apparently.
Showtime is owned by CBS, and it's a television network owned by Paramount Media Networks now. So yes, so
they'll be. I think they're dissolving into one, or homogenizing into one at some point.
At a future date, the combined service will be branded as Paramount Plus with Showtime in mid-2023.
What a gross! That's the worst thing that you could do. Ugh.
Paramount Plus with Showtime Plus. They should really just add so many pluses. Paramount Plus Showtime Plus. That's what I'm going for.
Words similar to Max. We're just gonna see. Call it Utmost.
Utmost, yeah.
Supreme. That's one. Well, they'd probably they'd get sued by Supreme for doing that. But Utmost. I'm just gonna call it Utmost.
Showtime was a great name. I don't know why they just rebranded all to Showtime. Right. I think that tells you kind of what it is. Right. So.
Just drop the time. Just call it Show.
I like one syllable words. You got me there.
There you go. Show. We're gonna call it Show from here.
But put the dot from HBO in the middle of it just to throw people off. All right, let's wrap this up before we derail for another half hour on streaming service names. Mike, if people know what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find you at, buddy?
Well, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and you can find my brand new webcomic at Life Rewards Risk and liferewardsrisk.com. Chris, if people want to catch you, where can they find you?
Find me on Instagram, Valdan87, VALDAN, or any gaming networks that's the same, Valdan. You can find me on there, play some games. I'm really playing games right now. I want to play some more. People know more about the show, what we're doing. I think our next review is Guardians of the Galaxy, right? I think that's the next one on our list. If one of people get ready for that, or go listen to our Super Mario Brothers review, as that movie has legs, as we discovered what that mathematical calculation was before the show started. Where can they listen to that at?
Oh, you can head on over to superheroslate.com. That is the home for everything we do for Superhero Slate, and to get our awesome show notes if you want to see about everything we talked about this week. We got a nice little itemized list over there at superheroslate.com. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to fine podcasts. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and get merch. superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. Reach out. Let us know what you think about the Max rebranding. Are you as annoyed as I am that the X is weird? Do you not care? Are you going to be paying extra money for the 4K? Let us know. And if you want to be a super fan of the show, super easy to do. All you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we'll be here every week, folks.
That's right. We'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.